I hope that you are having a wonderful start to your day, especially after I did that divine nugget about the importance of how you start your mornings. Anyways, in this moment, I am noticing a wonderful pattern of absurdity and synchronicities going on in the collective, in the tribes. Um, I'm also noticing how in my life right now, I am a part of multiple tribes, and how awesome is that? And they all kind of connect with this kind of Venn diagram effect to where, like, if you've got three of them, and like, the two interlap, and the other two interlap, and the other two interlap, and then in the middle, there's this itty bitty part where all of them connect in some interesting ways. And what I am noticing in the waves is that there is a pattern on breathing. 11:41 on the clock too, so 7, definitely a good thing to talk about. And it's funny because I'm feeling like this is I think it's okay, what I'm sensing and what I'm seeing with these human eyes is that it is mostly divine feminines who are taking the charge on relearning how to breathe. And I'm laughing because this actually started with something my DM was doing and got us into talking about the, like, when you feel like your chest is tight, and I mean, assuming it's not a heart attack or you've been checked out for heart stuff, and or you have anxiety or anxious attachment or some kind of attachment thing going on. Usually, when your chest is tight, it's because you're actually holding your breath and you don't know it. And it's not like you're holding your breath as in like, you're not like going blue in the face, but you're so tense and you're holding your breath in such a way that you're not getting a proper amount of breath in, and your body's trying to tell you like, hey, stupid. Not really stupid, but you know what I mean, like, hey, I need more breath. Hey, unstoppable. And so when you feel that chest tightness, or even if you just feel like you can't think straight, or things aren't quite going smoothly, and things are not moving quite correctly, it could be that you don't know how to breathe. And I love saying it that way. Like, it's such an absurdity, because then in one of my favorite tribes, there was talk about different kinds of breathing techniques. And I had a dream last night, which I'll get into in another video, but it included a reference to hawing, which is um, basically where you can mix in different kinds of like 4-7 breathing, like that. But the main thing is that at some point you take in a deep breath and you let it out and go ha, right, like that. And it was very interesting to have that dream happen, and then to have the breathing thing come out in the tribes and the collective. And also, Divine Maverick, one of my favorite readers and YouTube personalities these days, goodness sakes, the mother of twins, was also talking about breathing techniques, and most especially in reference to fire breathing, which is like the breathing you do before you prepare to walk over hot coals, or so fire walking. And it's also a reference to, I'm noticing I mean, it's been going on a while, but it seems to go up and down, the synchronistic patterns of dragons. And I think I figured out finally it's a combination of slaying our dragons, and it's 11:44 on the clock, and it's also and it was funny, 3:49, 7. It's also about embracing our inner children, in that we are allowed to believe in unicorns and dragons and fun things like that. And you could have a dragon like Pete's dragon, a wonderfully playful dragon that does all sorts of cool things, or you could have a super scary dragon that you've got to fight. I don't know. There was a movie I watched recently that I don't know why I'm feeling called to talk about it, but maybe you'll like it. It's called A Monster Calls. I believe that's what it's called, or Calling a Monster. I don't know. And it's a very cathartic, emotional movie. But anyways, so the breathing thing, to me, it very much fits in. And there's another pattern going on with fire, which makes sense because today, happy birthday, New Year, Ostara, etc., because it's the end of the astrological New Year for 2020 and the beginning of the blah, 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 the astrological New Year for 2021. Today, we are on the cusp between Pisces and Aries. Mm, it's the real non-physical, imaginative, mystical place into birth, realness, that new lifetime sort of energy. Anyways, it makes sense to me that going into that Aries energy, especially from such a childlike, absurd place, that makes sense that fire and breathing and dragons are all a thing in the collective. And also kind of this like romantic lovey vibe thing, especially with self-love and things like that. And it makes sense that as we start the new year, we should start with such an absurd thing as, do we really know how to breathe? And even if we know how to breathe as in that innate sense of you know, when you're sleeping you're still breathing, so obviously there must be some biological thing that's telling you to breathe. But I can tell you I've had some pretty absurd experiences in my life where breathing was a challenge. Sometimes because of something stupid I did, and sometimes just because of anxiety. And there are times that it is actually more valuable than you might think to know how to breathe, like proper breathing techniques, and how to breathe to go into situations where you need to be courageous, like where you're slaying your dragons, or you're approaching somebody that you have big emotions for, or you're going to go into some contrast or conflict, or how to just breathe to relax. Even how to breathe, like one of my favorites was when I used to have trouble sleeping. I learned about this breathing technique, and it's very wonderful. It's very fitting for Aries. Is if you think about a baby when they're breathing, the proper way to breathe is that when you take in a deep breath, you don't want your chest to puff out so much. You want to allow it to stay, but you want your diaphragm. I think it's yeah, you can't really see. So your diaphragm, you find your rib cage where it does this V thing, and right in the center in there is your diaphragm, and you want to breathe from there. And when you do that, your stomach should come out first, and then your chest comes out, and then you let your chest in, or when you exhale, you let your chest in and down, and then your diaphragm and your stomach. And that should be the most natural way we breathe, but with all the fun absurdities of adulthood, we tend to forget how to do it quite like that. And that also, then I've been, I won't say I'm a good singer, but I love singing in general, and I love testing my abilities with that. And so I've learned a lot of different techniques in terms of singing. And also, I love swimming. And when I was younger, I used to do this technique to where, like, I'd want to hold my breath for as long as possible. And so the swim instructor said, before you're going to do a long swim, like across the pool, or you're going to go underwater for a long time, what you want to do is like kind of jump up and down in the water. And before you go down, and then you go under, and you blow it all out on the way up. And then when you come out, you go and you go down, and you do that 3 to 5 times before you're going to hold your breath. And that actually helps you hold your breath longer. And I used to love trying to go as long as I could. When I probably couldn't do it for more than about 45 seconds now, unless it was a real life or death situation. But I used to be able to do it for about 2.5 to 3 minutes. I think 3 minutes was my absolute ultimate holding myself under for as long as I possibly could kind of thing. But then even there was other breathing techniques too, like when you're going across a pool, say doing a breaststroke, you're not supposed to just hold your breath the whole time. There's a certain way to turn your head and, take in a breath, put it in. You're blowing while you're going, and that helps. It's like if you're running, there's certain ways to breathe when you're running. That's another one. Like if you're fast walking, or you're doing any sort of like athletic exercises, a lot of people end up breathing through their mouths, just. And when I wanted to start getting into walking and doing things a little bit better, I started learning about breathing techniques. And one of the main things is that you don't ever want to just be breathing through your mouth, or even if you're breathing good, you don't want to just breathe through your mouth. You want to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. in through your nose, out through your mouth. And it's more challenging than you might think, especially if you're out of breath. But that actually helps make sure that your adrenaline and dopamine and everything stays in balance to what you are doing. And the same thing is funny about like, if you're going to do meditations or spell work or praying even, or ceremonial things. It's similar, but it's a little bit different. Is you want to breathe in through the nose like you're smelling a rose, and you want to breathe out through your mouth like you're blowing on a dancing candle flame, and you want it to dance more, but you don't want it to blow out, so like that, and that's actually a technique that I started teaching my kids how to do. For a while, I actually taught meditation in my oldest son's was a first grade class, and that was really fun and interesting to do for a minute. I wish I would have done it for longer. I know that the teachers were quite amazed that I could get, a class of 15 first graders not only to do it, but to be excited about doing it. And like I brought in the special like oceany sound music, and I don't know, it was fun. But that's what I taught them, both in how to meditate, but also, so my youngest son is a Leo sun with Scorpio rising. He can be very emotional, and it doesn't. He's actually better now that I think about it, but when I taught this technique to him of breathing, he was not fantastic about, like, he could be quickly reactive, and it took a long time to get those theatrical and wonderful emotions of Leo and Scorpio down to a manageable level where we could talk about it and process them, and it wasn't just a lot of fire breathing. Um, but now it's great because I don't even have to say it. Like both of my kids, when they find themselves very emotional, and especially when they come to me and say, "Oh, Mom, I'm emotional about this thing," they will naturally start doing it, especially if I say, "Hey, come give me a hug." And then I could see them naturally doing it. And it took a little bit of gentle, persistent training of like, remember your breathing. But we always do it at least 3 times, right? And then by the third time, you get a little more breath in and a little more controlled breath out. And then you just feel different, right? And over the years, I've seen, it's funny because there's always been different ways to breathe, but I feel like this year is definitely going to be a focus on how many different kinds of ways there are to breathe, which is just a delightful absurdity that I love embracing. Hence why I titled this one The Absurdity of Breathing, because most people in the world don't stop and think about their breathing. Not unless you get into hyperventilation or things like that, or you just can't breathe for whatever reason. Like say you got your airway stuck or something. But this is, which is, thank you for that, Spirit, because what came into mind actually was this picture of that somebody shared on Facebook about you need to cut your grapes in half, so because toddlers and kids under that often will not chew them, and they can get stuck in their airways, and that is not safe. And what that actually reminded me of is that we're going through all this stuff about healing throat chakras, and I think that that's something that's going to be an actual overarching energy of all this Aquarius energy going on for the 2021 year, at least astrologically, because last year we saw so many throat chakra issues. Being able to speak the truth, being able to hear the truth, being able to see the truth, intuition, things like that. And I think that now in this year we're going to be really seeing a focus on healthy, blossoming, blooming, absurdly wonderful throat chakra healing. And so it makes sense why the tribes and the collectives are focusing on all the wonderfully absurd ways that there are to breathe, and why this video decided it wanted to come out of me. So I'm going to end this video here as I see 14:14 on the clock, and I'm going to let you enjoy letting this kind of marinate with you, even if it's not, like, if you feel the tiniest bit of call to look into it, do it. Do it. Right? Do it. If you don't, then don't. It'll come to you when you need it to. But I think that, yeah, I think that I might start doing some videos about different breathing techniques learned Or I might not. I'm almost feeling like this might be provided by somebody else in the tribes and collectives, and maybe I'll just praise them about it. Either way, I love you all. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing. If you have not yet done any of those things, please bring your vibes to the tribe and make these messages a part of you and you a part of them. And I will see you in the next video.